Yeah.
Oh, thanks, I'm trying to quit snacking.
Oh. Well, that's no fun.
I know, but I gotta do that.
I brought you a pancake. No, because I think that's it. But just because. Someone is there, or more. Chris Humble. Someone else.
Chris is on?
Yeah, Chris is on.
No, I thought he had something at the same time. Hey, Chris Humble, can you hear us?
There you go.
Can you hear us, Chris?
Do we have to unmute him, Bob?
Oh, wait, I can hear you.
Okay, we just want to make sure.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, John.
It's been a busy day up here, Chris.
I'm guessing that's the case. Good meeting this morning.
Oh, thanks. Oh, this coffee is awful. It's lukewarm, Bob. I hope you didn't expect hot coffee, Bob.
There's some in that pot,
Is there?
Pat, it's hot.
Oh, yeah, that's probably really old over there.
I say that, isn't that probably this morning's coffee?
Probably.
We need to fix this Zoom thing. I've noted this before to a couple people. The issue for me on this end is all I can see is the board in a little panel. Maybe that's how you see me. There's no way to make the board full screen because with using that microphone in the middle of the room, when you say, give me speaker view, all you get is an icon of a phone. So we need to find a way to mic to the computer so that the Zoom feels that the audio and the video are coming from the computer.
I think, Chris, Megan was doing some research on that, so I'll make sure I mention that to her.
Okay, great, thank you, Bob.
There's a way to use like an independent camera and a microphone that would, I think, address your issue, I think. Thank you for thinking of me for a change.
Chris.
That's for John.
Whoa, where's John? Here, yeah.
As a married man, I'll get that comment.
Saturday's my day off, Chris. I'll find it.
So John, can you wait another minute or two before?
Yeah.
Okay.
We had 6 or 8 people express an interest.
We have one person online.
Well, we have 2 people on there. No, we just have one.
That's
Right.
us, yeah, that's us.
That's what Chris is saying, the phone icon shows up when it's the board.
You take it home for dinner, Chris? Oh. There's coffee over there, I don't think.
Is Rob in there?
Yep.
Okay, see, I can't see who's who in the little screen. Hi, Robin. I have to ask, is it Devarkian? The other online visitor here, is it Devarkian?
I don't know if he can hear you.
I don't know either.
Well, he unmuted himself.
Maybe.
So thought he was gonna answer.
Professor Lau, can you hear us?
He's coming back.
Maybe he had a bad connection, or maybe I scared him away.
I'm voting for 2.
Chris, don't forget to come up to the foundation and get your certificate and your mug.
Well, you're very kind. Thank you, Pat. We won't forget. We're both very pleased with that. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
Pat? We didn't close. There he is. I think that must be a screenshot or something.
No.
And blinked it.
It's a dead giveaway and you don't like.
Professor Lau, can you hear us now?
Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, we're gonna get started, because our time went up too long, and we'll make this as simple as possible. The purpose of this session is the Nominating and Leadership Development Committee started this last year, and we felt that a lot of people really don't know exactly what it entails to be a member of the board. Robin is being married to a former board member, you probably know as well as anyone here at the table. But that's what we want to do, is try to make this as informative as possible. What the handout is we ask the board to complete a survey, and we ask 5 simple questions. What's been the biggest surprise in becoming a board member? What's been the hardest thing you've had to deal with being a board member? Excuse me. What's the one thing you would change about being a board member? What's been the most rewarding thing? And what would you tell a prospective board member? Someone who's come to you and said, what's it like to be on a board? What would you tell that person in confidence? Now, we've taken the responses that the board members have given us. We've double scrambled them so that the board members may be able to identify their comments, but none of us can. Because we scrambled them once when they come in, and then I get them, and I re-scramble them, and I kind of rephrase them a little bit, just to make them a little less the same way I got them. I don't try not to change the meaning, but so really, no matter what you promised me, I could not tell you who wrote any of these comments. They just completely scrambled. Now, there are some here from last year, because we thought they were still very relevant, so we included some of those from last year, and some from this year. So this is a compilation of the 2 years. Rather than read this to you, take a minute, look at it, and this is really a completely free conversation. There's no order, just obviously like school don't talk over each other, but just take turns, ask questions. What does this mean? Do you understand this? And board members feel free to talk about something, emphasize this, and say, wow, this is really how I feel, or we've talked about this. So this is really just a conversation, and I'm only here to kind of moderate this, okay?
I think Professor Lau, and I'm not sure I'm saying that correctly, may not know who we are.
Okay, that's a good idea. Take a moment to introduce yourselves, and, Bob, why don't you start? You're right there.
Hello, everyone. My name's Bob Kohler. I'm currently a member of the board and also serve as our treasurer.
Hey, Chris Taylor, one of the new board members for this year.
Again, I'm John McGrail from the Leadership Committee.
Pat McGrail, member of the board, of the foundation.
John Dickinson, member of the board and currently the secretary of the board.
Robin Henley.
Hi,
Professor
let
Lau,
me
were you able
introduce,
to get a copy of the comments?
yes, let me introduce myself also. I am a new homeowner here in 1723 Snowfield Run. And yeah, that's just my nickname because I teach over Zoom, so I keep that nickname there.
Good for you.
And I think Lisa Dorn.
Yeah, Lisa's on there.
Hi, it's Lisa Dorn. How you doing? Homeowner 1762 Greenfield Terrace.
And I'm Chris Umble. I'm a member of the Finance Committee and of the Leadership Development Committee. When did you purchase your home, Dr. Lau?
I just purchased it on the 19th of May.
Good for you. Welcome. That's fantastic.
I thought that I recognized him, yeah.
You were at the, little gathering last night.
Yes.
Okay.
How are you enjoying, the community at Hidden Valley so far?
Well, so far good. It's quiet and, it's really pleasant here in a way because we go every week to Pittsburgh and you can see the difference or feel the difference in the temperature. And it's so cool here and it's quiet. And I'm planning to teach from here in fall. So that will be a good experiment also for me.
Very good. What caused you to, purchase a property up here? Had you visited with friends?
Well, to be honest, yes, we came here 2 years back with a friend, but that was not the reason. We were looking to find a place outside Pittsburgh, where we could have some quiet and some, nature. That's how we started looking. But one of my colleagues had a property here, and then she moved to Seven Springs. She's a skier, very, active skier. Her family. So she really was the person who motivated me to move to this spot.
Nice,
Nice, good.
that's good. All right.
Okay, anyone have any thoughts, comments about the questions and the answers?
Well, I can start. I think everybody but the professor knows I'm president of the board. It's been certainly a challenge in being on the board our first year of self-management because our first year met the pandemic head on. And so as a board, it's been a challenging time. It takes a lot of time to be on the board. I will say this, it's like any organization. The more you put into it, the more you get out of it. And so if you get involved and you participate and volunteer to take on projects, I think that the rewards are greater than if you're a board member who is a bystander. Although maybe our board could use some bystanders. It's a very involved group of people. Frankly, I think I've been on the board or an alternate for 4 years or 5 years, I can't remember. But the Hidden Valley representatives on the board when Seven Springs controlled the development were very committed then as well. So I think there's a track record here of interested parties volunteering for board service, and they certainly don't shy away from the work that's involved. Bob, maybe you can speak to your responsibilities as the treasurer.
Sure. So I've been on the board for several years. I have been the treasurer during the time I've been on the board. I'm pleased to say that we have gone through a couple of economic downturns as an organization, at the global level, the economy level, but have managed to work our way through those. We're in very strong financial condition. We don't have any debt. We're able to fund the improvements around the community. Every year we reinvest in the community. I did an analysis here a couple weeks ago of what we've spent over the last 10 years on road paving and capital projects. We've invested $4.3 million in the community over the last 10 years. So, I mean, I think that tells you that we're financially strong and we're able to reinvest in the community. And every year there is a capital budget, there are capital budget projects, and we continue to try to reinvest in the community to make it an attractive place and make people able to, or want to, purchase up here. I think the time I've been on the board has been a rewarding experience. It has been the last year during being a board member during a pandemic was certainly a challenging experience. Having served on a number of boards over the years, I've never been through anything like that. This board and other boards that I'm on required a lot more attention from the board members just because we were figuring it out week to week as to what did we need to do. So I think for all of us as board members, it was certainly a learning experience. And I think the best part about being a board member is just that you can kind of see the fruits of your labor. You can look out and see, I remember us cutting the ribbon for the playground, putting in a brand new playground. I mean, I think the pavilion that we have, we're very close. We hope that that will come to fruition. I mean, keeping our roads in good shape, having 2 pools that are in excellent shape. I think all those things, as an organization, we can be very proud of that. And that's been a rewarding part of being on the board.
Question, John, you're new to this. You've only been at this for a year.
6 months.
6 months, only seems like a year.
Right, you just,
Seems like 6
They're
years.
both
but-
January, yeah.
that's impossible.
So I would say, what I found, that we have a strong group of individuals with very different perspectives and, all good opinions. But everybody's working toward the betterment of the community. And at the end of the day, every vote we have taken, it seems as everybody comes together as a team and decides to make a betterment for the community. It's really a team effort, and you can see it. Everybody presents their opinion, but at the end, everybody, from what I've seen, comes to agreement.
I think it's interesting that Professor Lal is here and does not have the benefit of a great deal of experience with us. And yet the other individual that's here with us is Robin Henley. And as was pointed out, Robin's husband, Doug, served on the board for, I think, 4 years, maybe more. And no one is more involved in the day-to-day volunteering than Robin. So we really have 2 ends of the spectrum in terms of experience with volunteering at Hidden Valley. And Robin, you might want to tell us why you're here, because you know enough to know better.
I've thought about it before, and just timing, I guess it just seemed like a good time to at least explore the possibility.
Sure. Well, I think it's important for the professor to see this because I would say it's not a bait and switch situation. We're being upfront about the commitment and the amount of work. No one has shied away from that, but I think the fact that Robin is so familiar with what it takes and she's still here is testimony to the rewards that she sees and also the commitment that she has. So it's just great.
Thanks, Chris.
How about you, Chris Taylor? What has your board experience been so far?
So I'll preface these comments with saying this was my first foray into being on a board.
Wow.
So from a career perspective, I've been, you know, travelled pretty much most of my career, and it never left enough time to do these types of things. So my wife and I were new homeowners last March, so we've been homeowners for about a year now here. Fell in love with Hidden Valley and felt it was a good time to actually try and give something back and to try and do this. So it seemed like a good fit. So to Robin's point, the timing was right. There hasn't been any major surprises in coming onto the board, and I think coming from I'm not retired, unfortunately, wish I was. Still, actively employed in a business situation, so I was sort of expecting to be a bit like operating within a business, because we shouldn't, I guess, lose sight of the fact that's what we are, right? We're essentially a small business. So there's no surprise in the sort of processes and procedures and things that we have to do. I think what was a surprise to me was probably the history. So, when you start talking to people who've been around for a long time, is how we've got from being, under the original owners of the land and the community and the resort and the separation and into self-management. So when you look at that, you realise this board and the board prior to this, I think, have done an absolutely phenomenal job dealing with these peaks and troughs of just constant change. And then COVID hits. So when I joined the board in the first board meeting we were at, I mean, it was like running into a brick wall of just the amount of work that was being done and had to be done for us to function. I can now see 2 or 3 months later, as the executive director's coming on, I think we're starting to move into a better rhythm. And I think we're starting to now look at how the board manages at a strategic level and looks at longer term. And we're putting good resources in place to manage on a day-to-day business. So I think if you're coming onto the board, you've got to be prepared for the level of work and commitment is more than you think. You can make it as much as you want or as little as you want, but to be honest, if you're going to do it, you put everything into it. And I think the only other thing I'll say at this point is we have spirited discussions. We usually end up pretty much all aligned. I will not pretend we're always 100% aligned. We're not, nor should we be, nor will we ever be. But to John's point, the decision coming out, I think, is the best for the community. If there's one thing we can do better, and I think now we are self-managed, it's something we focus on, is how do we communicate that better to the community? Because I think very often we are making the best decisions we can under the circumstances, and some of it's been rushed and under pressure, and we don't always get the positive feedback from the community, and that can be a little disheartening at times, but I think we own the process to make that better. So if you're new board members and you want to come on with the thought in mind of how do we take that message and take it back to the community and get that greater understanding of what we do.
And you know what, Chris, that's a really good point, because so often we're in the throes of the project, the issue.
There we are.
And then you get to the end of it and you feel like you're successful, but you're 3 days late in communicating it to the community. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, and what happens is you'll get messages back, and I think sometimes the messaging that comes back to us, I think sometimes is not probably communicated as well as it could be in how it gets back in, and I think we end up being reactive. So I think proactive is always better if you go back to your, business days, and you go back to how you run capital projects and how you run facilities. If you can put a risk register together and anticipate a problem and put a risk mitigation in place before it becomes a problem, that's the best way to do it. I think we need to do a better job of that. That's the one thing I would change, is how we do be more proactive than reactive.
Bob, you've been through both the board with Seventh Spring, and now you're on the self-governance. How has that changed? I mean, I know governance-wise it's changed.
Right.
What's the feeling for the board?
Well, speaking solely on my own opinion, I think, we now feel like we are truly independent. We can truly make the decisions. I think Seven Springs, to a large extent, really did try to listen to us, and for the most part, in my time with them on the board, there may have been 2 instances where they said, we can't support what you want to do. But otherwise, they viewed it as, look, we're on the board because of governing documents, but we are willing to go along with what you want. It's your place, you're the homeowners, and they provided a lot of support and a lot of resources from that perspective. But now, right, I mean, it's really us. and in some ways, where we kind of lost a little something we could lean on, which was the expertise of the resort. I think.
Paid expertise.
Yeah, they have a lot of expertise in running resorts and in running communities and things like that. So, and it's not that they've gone away, right? We could still reach out to them, but I think as Chris alluded to, the steps we're taking, we've hired a professional executive director, we now have a manager of accounting, we need one more kind of solid management person. I think when that is in place, the board can hopefully then move to a more strategic level and not maybe be as involved in the operations. We've had to be, but I think all of us would like to go up one level, be a little more strategically involved.
And frankly, I think, and Chris, this thought occurred to me talking to you this morning, I just didn't get a chance to verbalize it. I think it's also now a learning curve for the board members to understand that they're not at this level. That, I mean, we're so used to handling the day-to-day operations. It's really hard to realize, oh, there's someone to do it. This is great. So you really just, what you can do is hand off your information to the executive director or the, accounting people, and they're gonna carry the ball and get the project done. But sometimes that's tough for some board members to understand.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the thing you take away from this is at the board level, as a board member, do you want to be talking about the strategic long-range plan and talking about what's happening, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, or do you want to be talking about a hot dog roller?
You had to go there.
I did because I think it's a good example, right?
Right.
We've got an executive director, we've got a good management, good management structure we're putting in place. Is figure out the hot dog roller, we'll figure out what's happening with roads, right?
Yep.
And not that there's, I'm certainly not, trying to make the snack shack and these things under important, but focus the resources in the right places is I think. One more thing I want to do. This is something I've never thanked Chris Humble for this, and I would, but as a message to prospective board members, Chris told me a year ago when I was looking at this, and I made a comment about Hidden Valley Resort, and Chris said to me, he said, "Don't think of it as a resort, think of it as the community."
Right.
And that was quite an interesting comment to me, because I thought of it as the resort. You drove into Hidden Valley Resort, and the houses are in the resort, but they're not. It's the community. I think that was a key takeaway for me as a new homeowner, new board member. That was a key takeaway. So thank you, sir, for that.
Robin, do you have any questions?
I don't think so. Like you said, because Doug was on the board, my husband was on the board for 3 years, so I saw a lot. And he was on when COVID hit, and then you guys started meeting every week.
Right.
And it was weekly. I saw the hours that he spent, during the day. Even fortunately, since we're retired, we have that time, so that's a plus, a positive. So.
Pat, maybe you should address, Robin brings up a good point about the cadence of the board's meetings. And how do you see that at present, and how do you see it evolving?
Well, you know what, Chris, I think we have already started a change in that regard. We're no longer meeting weekly. That became a daunting task, I mean, for everybody. You know, and you know that there's a lot of pressure on people when we start the meeting by saying, let's try to be done in 2 hours. I mean, so you know it's been too much.
Robin and I understand that. 3 hours later.
That frequency was really driven though by the demands of COVID, wasn't it?
Yes.
It was.
And we were struggling with our executive director at the time, and we're trying to work through that problem, and
then doing the day-to-day stuff,
it was,
because the director
wasn't doing it. It was extremely difficult. So,
Double whammy.
you know, fast forward to 2021. Megan has been in place since April.
No, mid-February.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Time flies.
Time does fly. So Megan has been in place for several months, you know, certainly doing a good job. She had never managed, this type of community before, so it's been a learning experience for her. But Chris, to your point, what we, as everybody knows, we do meet monthly, and we call an executive session when there's an issue that I think the board needs to weigh in on. In between board meetings, a rudimentary decision I can make, on behalf of the board, because either we've discussed it at the board and I feel pretty comfortable moving forward. But if it's something that is strategic or requires the expenditure of significant funds, we call that, still call that executive session. Really, at most twice a month.
That's what we've settled into, is 2 a month.
2 a month. And so, that's progress, and maybe, once we fill all of our positions and put some other things in place, we'll be able to go to a once-a-month meeting. Frankly, board members will recall, when Seven Springs was the developer, we met bi-monthly and had no executive sessions. The officers, they were rare. And so it was quite a change to go from that schedule to an every month schedule. We just simply had too much.
It was too much.
We had to meet.
Well, we always seem to piggyback the board with an executive session at the same time, so you're really only having one extra meeting
A month.
a month.
Yeah.
And that works very nicely.
I think it does.
Yeah.
I think it does.
I remember very well when I was on the board, when we were meeting bi-monthly, the homeowner members of the board, Bob Kohler obviously was there. We felt we should meet monthly. We felt there was more urgent work to do than to meet bi-monthly, but we weren't able to get that accomplished until, guess what? Until we were, as homeowners, in charge. And so kudos to you guys for making that happen.
The one thing I would add to what Pat said was that each board member serves on at least one committee, and that committee does meet outside of the board meeting times and/or is on some kind of a task force, right, and working on something. So we've been able to kind of spread that around, I think, fairly successfully, and each board member then is able to act as a liaison back to the overall board on whatever that specific topic is.
Maybe we should touch just for a moment too on the structure of the board in terms of number of members. Do you want me to talk about that for a moment?
So what do you think?
Sure, Chris.
Yeah, well, just for Dr. Lau's information, there are 7 members of the board, all volunteers, all homeowners. So peers. And the way it's structured is 3 are elected 1 year, 4 the other year. So it's alternating. Frankly, we're finding that that rate of turnover, the potential of 4 new members in a year, is a little daunting in terms of continuity. But that's the structure we currently have. And in this year, we will elect 4 members. If we have incumbents who run, if they're reelected, that'll help smooth out the continuity. But the potential is there for a substantial percentage turnover and, you know, some built-in risk along with that. But that's the cadence on an annual basis in terms of the structure of the board. And then the board members themselves, once elected, in January, they elect the officers. So the officers are not truly directly elected by the members. The board among itself chooses its leadership.
So I have one question about the way the board engages the community. Do we have committees that, assist the board in, certain tasks? For instance, okay, maybe the landscaping. How many such committees are there that assist the board?
There are 6 standing committees in the bylaws.
Okay.
The bylaws have 6 standing committees, and then in addition to that, there are a number of ad hoc committees that do, in fact, landscape is one of them, Professor Lau. There are a number of other committees, social well, that's a standing.
That's a standing
Yeah.
committee.
There are
The
communication,
leadership committee is a,
leadership and nomination. I mean, there are a number of additional, I would say probably total, there's a dozen, maybe 15
Yeah.
committees in total.
Yeah, it's about 15. About 15.
Okay. Okay, and then one more extended question. So I am a professor of information systems, and I actually work with students, who actually engage organizations in and around Pittsburgh. Primarily, we work with charity organizations and NGOs. We do projects for these NGOs and charity organizations. And so I have some experience working with different organizations. And one of the things, of course, I still need to know more about how the HVF works. But besides the website, what kind of online activities are there, or what kind of efforts are there to engage people more online, to build more online communities within HVF?
I can address that a little bit. One of the things that Pat has asked me to do as we anticipate arrival of a staff member who will have communications as a specific accountability. I edit. I don't take credit for the content, but I do edit the newsletter, which is weekly. It comes out each Thursday. The other thing we're working on is the website. And within the communications committee, one of the things we just embarked on starting last week is we're going to do benchmarking of best practices among nonprofits, among HOAs, and then do a gap analysis. What are the best practices and what are our practices, and what gaps are there between those two? And so that goes to social media, it goes to online platforms. There will be a number of initiatives that come from that study. Maybe you'd like to join us.
Yes. Yes.
Quite frankly, you don't have to. Again, we're all volunteers, and you bring. You've already mentioned relevant experience. We'd be happy to have you involved.
Yes, that's definitely one area in which I can assist, and I can provide support for sure, because I felt that's the first thing that I missed here. It's always good to have newsletters. I have read almost all the documents that I got. And I can see that the foundation board itself, I mean, the board is doing a great job, because, you are sustaining the community and you also have growth plans. But when 2 weeks back, we went to Seven Springs for the first time, and we saw a lot of activities there. And so we were wondering, why don't we see any activities here? And then I was surprised today to see in this document that actually Seven Springs owns all the different activities that go on here. And I was surprised that they don't have anything going on here, while they have I would say, an extreme, set of activities going on there. And so that's one thing which, I was very curious about. And I think I got that answer, that this is not within your purview. It's up to the Seven Springs management to do. But having said that, I think there are still things that we can do from an online, point of view, that, we could set up some partnership with with Seven Springs or even with Somerset as such, the extended community. What kind of relationship do we have with the extended community? And that might be beneficial because, we came in here, as we found from other folks at our social yesterday, that one of the challenges here is getting services, whether it's for, plumbing, and Barry was great support, or for other activities. It might be good if we can learn from others' experiences, but there is a way in which we can interact with others who are interested in interacting. So I definitely would volunteer to support you in this activity on the online side.
That would be great. I'll be in touch.
Sure, absolutely.
But one thing you do need to realize, though, is there's a distinct difference between the resorts and the community. Right? So you're looking at Seven Springs as a resort and their activities. You're not looking at Seven Springs community as their items. So you have to weigh the two differences. Our community does things a little differently than the resort does things.
Yes, absolutely. But I also feel that, there is mutual benefit. I think, definitely the community benefits from the resort, and we should also look at how does the resort benefit from the community. Maybe in terms of publicity, maybe in terms of guests coming over and then, enhancing their revenue. So there is a way in which, there is some mutual benefit, and we can also benefit from that, whatever mutual benefit possibilities are there.
I think Robin had a question.
Robin, you had something to say?
I just wanted to point out that the terms for the board members are for 2 years. And then Chris, I had a question. You brought up the weekly update. Is there any way to put it under the What's New section on the website each week? That way, instead of having to go back and find the email, I can log into the website and find, maybe keep it on for a month,
Yes.
and then delete them and add the new one.
No, we've talked about that, and that's part of my training with John Wolf, is to understand how to post that, and I'll do that, Robin.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, Chris and John, we should maybe ask Lisa if she has any questions. She is a bit of a veteran and has served on some committees, but Lisa, maybe you might have some questions or comments.
Actually, no, I'm just listening. I have no questions at this time. I was involved in the slurp for a couple of rounds, and now the nominating committee and the volunteer recruitment committee. So I've seen you guys work. I know how hard you guys work, and I think you do a great job. So right at this point, I'm just observing.
Well, I don't want to tie the board members up any longer. I know this is at least your third meeting of the day. And some of you may have had committee meetings placed in there someplace. So I really, I appreciate your time. If you have any thoughts on either this process or the survey, please let us know. We're trying to make it better. We're trying to get more people involved with volunteering at all levels. I know, Robin, you have to beat the bushes sometimes to get people to volunteer to help you. But, we're trying to get this going, and that's what we're trying to do, is find more volunteers for board positions. For anybody listening, the calendar is on the website. If you go to the website and look at it, I wrote this down so I would get it right. If you go to the portal, go to ownership, association governance, there's a Board of Elections tab, and that gives you all the forms and the calendars for this year's election. So if you have any more information, or Chris and my email's out there, Lisa's is out there. If you have any questions for us individually, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. We'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Will you make this survey part of the packet this next year?
Pardon?
Will you make this survey part of the packet next year, so a potential board member would be able to
That's a good
read it?
idea. I wish I thought of it. It really is a good idea. Because a lot of things want to read. We can probably put it on this year, can't we, Chris?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Yeah, the call for nominations is scheduled for August. This is really the first event of our nominating season. And there'll be much more communications to come. And John, to your point, this document certainly can be made a part of that.
Yeah, it's a really, really good idea.
Interesting document to a potential candidate.
Yeah, and someone who just may not have been able to be here today or didn't even know the session was taking place, because we had a glitch with scheduling and, you know, we own that too.
Thank you, John.
I'll just make a sort of a last comment for, if you're thinking about being a board member, don't overthink it, just go with it. I mean, because I think you can talk yourself out of it,
Sure.
especially if you've got some history and know what goes on, but honestly, just do it. Just do it. Good fun.
Well, thank you everyone for attending. I really appreciate it. Again, if you've got questions, anytime,
Thanks for joining.
get in touch with us. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye,
Bye,
guys.
bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Everybody.